Awesome.
Hey.
Hello.
Are we live? Is everything up and running and
Think
functional?
so. I can see some familiar faces on the screen. So.
Nice.
I know those guys.
Seen them around.
Perfect.
Sorry.
All right. I guess like we're not. We haven't really done streams a lot in Crowbite, so this is like a very ad hoc, chaotic thing. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, should we start the game? Like play some and talk some?
I think that would be a great idea.
See what happens.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow, 16 people. Welcome everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice.
Hello. Who's going to play the game, by the way?
Oh my god. We don't have that ready.
We didn't prepare that.
I can do it.
Awesome.
Nice.
I suppose we could also do like a round of introduction while we're here, right?
Let's do that.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So yeah, I'll start. So yeah, hello internet. I'm Simon. I was the art director and the artist for Sunlight. I'm happy to be here.
Also, you're the person featured in the behind the scenes art video, waving with your hands in the magical
Oh yeah,
like VR stuff.
That's
this is
true.
true. You might know me better, like with my eyes like this or something.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. Yeah.
Now we recognize you.
It clicked.
You're the future guy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Art wizard.
I like that title.
And of course, art is a big part of the game, so that's a very central role. Another very central part is audio, of course. Pointing at you, Martin.
Hey, good morning, good evening, good day. Nice to see you. I did audio editing. Me and Adrian did choir recording, and yeah, we had a lot of fun.
And we're also in charge of like all the voice acting, coordination stuff. There's lots of voices in the game, so it's also an important part.
Billions, you might say.
Billions?
Billions of bytes of data spoken. And yeah, technically, it's also important with video games.
Yeah.
Pointing at your face, Dennis.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Dennis. I've done a lot of the tech, not everything, but a lot of it. Yeah. Just sort of sewing this whole shebang together. But it's these other guys who have done most of the work, I think. But yeah, Björnar has been really helpful with the tech and the art and stuff.
Point, like if everyone points towards the person who's
Oh yeah, that works.
I don't have the stream open, so I can't see. But yeah, hi. I guess you're pointing at me now. So yeah, my name is Björnar, and yeah, I've been mostly tech artist on this project, which I'm very happy about. And I've been trying to be the glue between Simon's art and the game, and making sure that we can actually build the thing, set it together. So all the fun stuff I get to do. I don't know who to point at next, so I'm going to point at you, Rob.
Yeah.
Rob.
Hello, I'm Rob, and I'm another artist and a visual effects person on the team. I work with Björnar and Simon to take the concepts and the tools and make them in the levels with the editor. And spend a lot of time with grass. It's been really eye-opening. Actually,
You're the
There
grass
is a
man.
lot of grass in the game.
I love grass. It's
So
amazing.
many grass. Did you make every single one?
Every blade I smoked, I made these. Yeah,
Nice.
and Simon did too. It was very actually quite collaborative. There's a lot of back and forth with paint overs, and then Simon dipping into some of the level design, and me making some of the shaders and some of the meshes. So it's a very collaborative process.
And sort of like the mastermind, or like the one pulling some of the strings, is, I guess, Niels, who sort of steer us all in the correct directions, make sure that we do our things on time.
Yes, steer us away from temptation. I think that's a good.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And make sure that all our meetings do not happen like this.
Crack the whip.
Basically, the person doing all the boring work, like Excel spreadsheets, and hopefully helping people to focus on their work. So yeah,
The
it's
guy
been
with the
amazing.
whip.
Yeah, the guy with the whip,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
the guy who says no, like herding cats. Someone has no, but seriously, it's been an amazing process. Like watching all you guys do the work that you're really good at. That's been really, really cool. So I'm super proud of it.
Nice.
Adrian, did you go?
I don't think I did, but I did some writing design things. And,
All of the
That-
writing design things?
that
Whose
was
idea
the-
was it to do this project again?
Yeah, I have a tendency to drag Crewbite into some deep holes creatively, and this was one of them. So yes,
Legend has it
been,
that Adrian disappeared up in the mountains for a year, and when he came back, he had the script ready and had programmed 90% of the game.
Stone
Yeah,
tablets.
it's been done.
it's strangely close to the truth as well. With this past year having been isolation and home office for everyone, we've been working like this almost the whole year. So that's been strange, but yeah, a lot of the script was written in isolation in the cabin. So yeah, it's fun.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm not joking.
You never joke, Martin. You're always so serious.
Yeah. I think we're ready to go into the game.
Yeah.
Yes, do it.
Mhm.
Alexander can do the switcheroo.
That's a beautiful switcheroo.
Oh, here we go.
Is it happening?
Oh,
Nice.
perfect.
Hey, there we go. Nice.
Do we have audio as well, or should we talk over it? I guess.
I mean,
We can. How about doing a live reading of the script, Adrian?
Wow.
Oh, it crashed.
No way.
I think my computer is overwhelmed. But let me clear some space here.
Oh well.
Games never crash, by the way. Doesn't happen.
That's the first time. So weird.
Yeah. Okay, let's try that again. Okay. There we go. I think we're in the green.
Nice.
Right. So yeah, we're. It was, as you saw in the intro, funded somewhat by the Norwegian Film Institute, which we're pretty privileged to have in Norway, funding some game projects.
Nice.
Okay.
But we can talk over this, right?
Welcome. Are you sitting comfortably?
Oh, there we go. I just gotta say this whole intro thing. I think that turned out really cool. I remember like along the way it was such a daunting task. Like when we initially like got the we'll just talked about the idea. Oh yeah, let's have a tree growing up from nothing into a full tree, and we'll see it close up all the way. And there's a lot of really neat tech that went into that. It's so cool to see it now and like how the end result turned out.
Yeah, and it's all in game. It's no like CG cutscene here.
There's no CG in this game at all.
Yeah. I guess it was also pretty tricky with the art style to make that work.
Yeah, it was a little bit, blissful ignorance going into it, and then just hoping to run far enough before you get stuck in the details of it. But yeah, it turned out okay in the end. I'm still too close to it, and all these little things I want to fix. But yeah, it's growing.
We initially tried motion capturing of the tree,
but then
the
Niels
anatomy
told
just
us that
went
we.
that far, so.
It's like,
No, but I mean, if I can recall correctly, you had like full control over leaves and like all the small bends and how things fade into each other. And there's a mix of like several different trees that kind of grows on top of each other and stuff. It's quite the intricate setup, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's like so kind of an example of where it would be nice to have even more time, because it feels like we have made like the first iteration of kind of a setup that can be used to animate all sorts of things. So like stay tuned for Sunlight 2. And we can have all the nice trees that you've painted could then be moving in this
Nice.
snake-like fashion as well.
Like
I think Sunlight 2 is going to be, it's basically in real life this summer though, when we can all go out.
Oh,
the real
yeah.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, can I just say
Sunlight
that
3 is the gay friends we made along the way, right?
for sure. It is really nice though, actually, like seeing the game now and like, kind of like all this summery feels. Well,
Yeah.
it's. I mean, I've barely seen actual sunlight today at all, or in general, sitting here in the like the lockdown in the home office.
Yeah, it's very nice.
but, just going back to the art style, Simon, would you want to talk a little bit about how you guys made this? Because it's not just off the shelf modeling it in Blender and exporting it sort of thing. Like going to yeah.
Yeah, where to start? Wow, it feels very, very cool showing it off like it is here right now, finished and everything, because there was certainly a lot of hiccups along the way. But I think, you know, the cool thing with both the art style and this project in general is that what we set out to do was to really do something different, right? I remember one of the first art meetings we had, talking with you, Adrian, and we were talking about like how we wanted the art to not even look like a video game. Like that, the first reaction one would have to seeing this would be like, this is something new, something different, and just running wild with that, right? And of course, we did have a bunch of references, like cool artworks we wanted to emulate, and like potential avenues we could go to in order to achieve that style. But I think what we ended up with was such a cool mix of well, art style and like the general technique that kind of created this very unique look that I haven't seen before, at least.
Yeah, I remember the meeting. I think someone said, Adrian said, "Yeah, I want something completely unique. It's never been seen in games before. We have like 1 week for it."
Well, that's about right. No, but I think because just to loop everyone in, the way we did this whole art style is that rather than just as Nils mentioned, building it in traditional 3D with modeling and texturing it and animating it and so on, we just went straight into VR painting using the application Quill. Like that's the thing where you the Oculus thing, just painting brush strokes in different colors, and in that way I think we got really close to the painted look very early. And I mean, stop me if I go on too long here, because I think just the whole concept of a painted look in games is so interesting, right? Because no matter like how close you go to a painting, it's still just like an approximation of paint, right? Like what makes something painterly? Is it using brushstroke textures in the actual textures, or what? And I think the approach we did was to just the whole way through really approach it in the way you would paint like a picture by just strictly replacing the whole modeling technique with VR painting, and then when we're working with colors, trying to keep it very intuitive and flexible. Well, not that it was that every step of the way, but I think that the result kind of looks very painted because it kind of relies on the very fundamental art principles, right? How the details fade as the trees recede into depth, and how silhouettes are important, and how kind of like the management of shapes, and trying to make it look like there are very deliberate choices made all along the way. I think that made it, well, in my opinion at least, it's a very unique way of going the painterly direction rather than just trying to, well, emulate kind of the surface level painterly look to me. Not to bring that down or anything. There's so much cool stuff being done all over the place. But I'm, as to say, I'm really happy with how this turned out. That we did something really really new and unique in a way. So just to bring it a little bit back to reality, as mentioned, we painted this with VR with Quill, and then we processed this through Houdini, doing a lot of smart stuff to make this actually viable in real time in Unity, and then it's brought into Unity, and there's several systems which Rob worked a lot with to actually take this from just assets and into a full forest. Because I think that's a pretty cool point too, though, and maybe you want to talk about that a little bit, Rob. How this is basically a procedurally generated forest you can take in every direction, and that's kind of part of the experience.
Yeah, it's so the process for that, after we figured out the VR sculpting workflow and the processing in Houdini, is getting it into the engine in Unity, and then putting it into this plugin called Vegetation Studio that lets us scatter. We can take all the stuff that we made, and then we can kind of randomly place them with a certain pattern across the entire landscape. So we just like, the drag of a mouse, you can kind of scrub through different arrangements of a forest with just with just tweaking one number. You can change how the entire forest looks. So you can do that with individual assets like the grass, or you can do it as a group of things like all the trees. So it was kind of finding the right balance, the right density of the trees, how open it should feel, and ultimately what the performance would let us do. Because I don't, a lot of these assets are quite heavy. Speaking in terms of performance, it can take a lot of power to populate the landscape with all these grasses and bushes and trees and everything. So it's kind of like pushing the system to the absolute limit, where like, how dense can we make everything? And then we just below that limit, we try to keep it as lush as possible. Yeah, it was difficult. There's a lot of balancing going on there with just trying to make it look beautiful and lush and just full of life, but also so you don't need a super high-end gaming computer to enjoy a kind of a casual meditative experience like this.
It is not a casual meditation for your GPU, that's for sure.
Not at all.
Yeah, it gets a workout for sure.
Yeah. It's the whole style is kind of centered around the assumption that poly count, like the density of the object, is not going to be what limits us, because computers are pretty good these days. So we're really stuffing a lot of detail into these trees, not doing too much processing on the original painted assets. Actually, it's mostly about kind of giving ourselves or treating them so that they can be lit nicely and in the way that it's painted, because that was very important to kind of get away from the look of 3D objects being lit by a game engine kind of look. And that description covers quite a range of art styles. So very happy with the more or less flat look that we ended up with by processing the assets in a certain way, and also sending a lot of information from like with the mesh into the game engine that we could use to kind of tune it this way or that to get exactly what we wanted. And also interesting that the one thing that we kind of by looking at the sort of painted references that we had, one of the most obvious things in the end was that the detail density of them is kind of the same across the entire screen. Like if you paint a flower, it's kind of a dab of paint that's the same size as the dab of color that is next to it. So that was also something that I feel was a very nice thing to try to implement, because that also means that we can have kind of less detail in the distance, and which means that the optimization is part of the art style in a very useful way.
I think it's really, really interesting what you're mentioning there, Bjørnar, about the kind of like the level of detail. I think it's not something that is very recognizable in the while just playing the game. But if you look closely at like the back row of trees there, the way that those are kind of morphing into its final shape as you move towards them, that was such a clever setup. And I think you mentioned it, Bjørnar, at some meeting at some point, but it really rings true that in order to get that effect working, I think that there's like this is the only process that would lead to this exact look, which I think is really cool. And there's certainly some. I think we have some extra video tests and stuff we can show afterwards, just to highlight that effect. But I feel like in general, like the overall look, it's so cohesive, getting that subtle detail in.
Yeah, I mean, I really believe that walking around here, you'll find like a painting almost everywhere. So that's it's really beautiful, or not almost everywhere, absolutely everywhere. So so that's really nice.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I hope it doesn't come off that as if I'm just bragging about my own work here. I'm just super excited that we actually get to try this stuff out and that it works,
Yeah, I think there's reason to brag about a lot of things here.
I think one of the most sort of amazing points in production for me, at least, was after those 2 weeks where it's sort of like, okay, we're gonna do this thing that is completely unique and no one has done it before, and after 1.5 weeks, stuff started showing up on the screen. I was like, okay, fuck it, we can actually pull this off with this completely new technique, and this new look and everything. So that's something to be proud of. It was really cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, that being said, I do remember that meeting after the first week, showing off like stills and how it was already coming together, and everybody was excited to see this super fresh art style. And what I didn't tell anybody at that time, well, until after the meeting, I think, was that I think everywhere you looked, you had about 700 million polygons on screen. So and the frame rate was a little bit above 1 or something on our target hardware, possibly, if it ran at all. So, you know, it technically it worked, and it made for some very nice stills, which is all that matters,
Yeah,
right?
I think we saw the Unreal Engine 5 demo, and we were like, we can do 1 billion polygons. Yeah.
But we actually never got to 1 billion, I think. We have to try
Oh,
harder.
man. So close.
Yeah.
The trick is reaching 1 billion, then you unlock the next stage of graphics.
Yeah.
Oh, it's weird to think back to that, because I had kind of forgotten the numbers we were looking at there, and I'm very proud that we actually ended up landing on playable frame rates in the end with that as a starting point. But the game isn't really about the art style, is it? I feel like it's just as much about, or like the reason for its existence isn't to be an art demo, but more to.
That is true. It's more about Adrian.
No, but everything is connected though. So I feel the art style, of course, it's very central, like that whole human, organic, like it the way that it feels, at least to me, very like handmade, fits very neatly in with the themes it explores as well. I don't think we have to go into too much detail on those things. Those are cool to explore for yourself with no spoilers, I think. But yeah, I think at least personally, it really feels like all the different elements, like the choir music with the beautiful music and the voice acting and the art style and everything kind of fell into place at that point, which was really, it's always fun when that happens, because of course this only exists in your mind for a long time, and then at one point in production suddenly everything is like assembled, and it is a thing that exists that didn't exist before, and that's always a special moment.
Yeah. And it's always thrilling when that moment where everything sort of fits is like 2-3 weeks before it's supposed to be finished. So that always gets the pulse rising.
I mean, sorry.
No, I was just Adrian, if you could say something about the inspiration for this, like what made you to like think about these things and start writing this game?
Sorry?
Yeah.
What did you say, Alexander?
There.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's like central in Krillbite, at least, since it's been we established the company, has been to do like some experimental new things, exploring what this weird new medium can do, and of course that's part of the inspiration. But it's hard to talk about this game specifically without spoiling the ending and things in the game. So I'm like, I don't want to dodge the questions, but it's hard to find ways to talk about it indirectly. But at least we're trying to explore a lot of different element of kind of humanity in here, and that's also a big part of the reason we ended up using like a huge variety of voice actors from all over the world to narrate the game, and in like unison as one being. And also the reason we chose to use choir music, because that's also like a huge group of humans performing together, making one piece. And I don't know if we should say much more than that, but it's with these kinds of rather abstract pieces of work, like it's very much inspired by like spoken poetry and guided meditation and
Our lunch table conversations.
and our lunch
Yeah.
table conversations, and of course huge like philosophical ideas about how the universe works, right? And once you start talking about that, it's like to some extent it is what people get from it, and explaining it is not really that much. I don't know, doesn't do it justice, it feels like, in a way, or it is its own thing, and I hope people find a lot of things in it, if that makes sense.
But I mean, that's the kind of beautiful thing as well with any kind of media. I think that, you know, you have your intention and you build the world as detailed as you want, and the whole team, if done correctly, are in on the vision and put out these breadcrumbs. And I think like what I like with how the game ended up was that it feels like a lot of the core philosophies feel reflected in the detail level. Like I can't say the technical jargon for all the visual stuff, but definitely for audio and music. As Adrian said, we had voices from all over the world. We had the choir. When you hear wind, it is also the choir whispering and whistling through their teeth. And there's some stomping going on of 30 people going like. We also had one of the things that got cut that I really wanted in was we also got them all to make like this sounds, and 30 people making a sounds like a creek. So we wanted a little waterfall somewhere, but but yeah, basically like it all ended up being very cohesive, and I think that the cool thing with this game is that it's a small, very cohesive little half hour with a lot of breadcrumbs towards the main theme and narrative of a story.
I also think for this kind of a rather small, it's about half an hour long, and it's like experimental and kind of weird, and a niche kind of game, like the production value is also, I guess, pretty unique for that kind of the segment of the market, if you want to speak in those terms. It's cool that we were able to put so much work into something that small and that niche, which I think is very cool.
I think that's part of what is so liberating about like kind of smaller focused projects is you can have a radical approach to like an art style or a narrative, kind of a narrative mechanic or a narrative just like experience, that when the experience is kind of focused to 20 or 30 minutes, I feel like you can structure things quite a bit differently than if you were expecting the player to spend 3 hours or 10 hours or longer. So that's why I feel like this project kind of it lets us kind of tell a story in a different way that I think would be difficult to do with a more traditional kind of title, for lack of a better word.
It feels like the short story or almost poem version of a video game. If you wanna go there.
Yeah, for sure.
It's definitely space for that sort of product in the market.
Yeah, I think an interesting aspect is like you could, in some aspects or ways, you could put like all expressions or all types of media on this scale, and there would be all these gray zones in between them. Like internally, at least early on in the production, we also talked about Sunlight as like an interactive audiobook. So it definitely exists in this like gray zone between a lot of different medias, and yeah, of course, there's no like right and wrong answers to like what something is. It is what it is in a way. But yeah, it's definitely towards the more like literature, poetry kind of medium part of the video game space. But of course, it's very easy to put things into boxes and judge things by what box it belongs in, and not by what it is in a way. Which is not easy on the fringe niche kind of thing.
But I think that it's really cool to hear you say that. In my opinion, what's kind of pushing it further, so to speak, and using the medium to its advantage is that awesome work that you did, Martin, that we've touched upon a little bit with the voices, how like every tree having its own voice. And I think that through this stream now, we don't really get to hear that all that well, but it's a really strange and surreal experience just moving forward and hear one voice picking up from the other. Not to mention like all the brilliant voice acting we got in, and hear all these performances kind of speaking the same monologue in their own way. That's I thought that was really cool and a really unique way to present the monologue in that sense.
Yeah, I think it's been a very cool game to be a part of, because in many ways, lead audio has been Adrian. Like, yeah, the vision came from him, and it was a very strong idea. So it was a very interesting kind of game of this time around, solving more logistics, technicalities, and doing a lot of things we haven't ever done before. And just going from, I think the one game that we have the most things in are Among the Sleep when it comes to writing. And now suddenly we have a game that is only writing. Like Among the Sleep was maybe 4 or 5 pages of scripting in total, and this is just it's like an eighth of the length with 9 pages of continuous talking with 20 different actors that all have different ways of pronouncing and phrasing and saying vowels, and just getting everyone to kind of together was a lot of work, and then getting everyone edited and starting to kind of realizing that we have to start taking out these kind of small sounds. Then you have like many hours of work of cleaning it out to be kind of presentable as it is now. But it was this nice thing where we kind of started with this, like, okay, we think it works. We did like 4 or 5 tests before we did the complete final recording with the 20 different actors, and then spent a bunch of time just editing and tweaking and making it sync up nicely. Both helped with Dennis, who was impeccable audio implementation wizard when it came to coding, and Alice Droni, who did a lot of removing glitches and pops and mouth sounds in general. So it was like a really cool team effort together to get everything in. Definitely a lot more work than I imagined when it came to editing, but going around in the forest in the end, it sounds very it's quite magical. At some point we got past this threshold where there were enough voices synced that it felt like the spoken unison, and it felt really close to how we hoped it would feel, which was always very good when you're taking a risk and don't really know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah. A funny thing about the voices is before we actually got someone to actually speak the written words, we had like these computer generated voices. I think Björnar found like a program or a software for that. Maybe Martin. and it was very uncanny having like 5-10 different robot voices trying to sort of be a choir and communicate this story. So yeah, it was kind of strange, but
But that said, like they also sounded fairly good to be robot voices.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
really like
Shout out to Sonantic for giving us access to that. That's very
super kind.
very nice. Just
Yeah.
text to speech with emotion.
yeah,
It definitely helped us plan out a lot and prototype the system for just testing out. I think we tried out maybe 3-4 chapters of it, something.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just very handy to be able to go around for a long time and just test out how the attenuation should work and how the system for placing the voices, because we have this system that in a circle around you, all the 20 voices are placed on each tree, and if you start walking one way, I'm drawing like in front of my face. If you go out, if you like, the circle moves with you, so the trees that are then outside of the circle behind you, they get spawn in front of you. So you have this. It's like a treadmill basically, which works really well, and it's actually. Eventually, you might be able to recognize some of the voices, but that also takes a bunch of time because it's always a bunch of voices that you hear at the same time, except for like if you're in the middle of a meadow. And I think also the kid voice and the narrator voice, they're pretty easy to recognize after a while because
Yeah.
kid speaks like this, a little out of can't say difficult word. But I noticed actually one of the reviews they detracted us for that, saying that the 4-year-old kid reading was technically not as good as the other ones, and actually distracted from the moment. And that's a beautiful thing that I guess they found distracting. But I think that kind of shows something. It creates like this wow moment, and it might pull people out, some people, but the first time I heard that and I started approaching it, it was very, very cute.
Yeah, I had the same experience because I didn't know that was being put in, and then I was testing the exact spot that it was being used in because it's like in the middle of this empty kind of meadow, and then I walked towards the tree and I just heard this tiny little voice start speaking the script, but it's like stumbling over a lot of the script at the time because it wasn't quite edited, but just it felt like this beautiful human child moment listening to him, and it was just it's the same message but spoken with a completely different cadence and a completely different expression, and it actually kind of pulled me into the narrative more.
Same.
Even though it kind of like takes you by surprise. It was yeah, that was one of my favorite moments during making
That
this
was
whole
also
thing.
so a bunch of this game was developed in isolation, of course, but a lot of the sound ideas came from me and Adrian sitting and arguing on the train for 8 hours, coming up with a lot of ideas. And we were talking about a lot of things, like how many old people should we have in the game, and how many kids should we have in the game? Like arguing like what the. I guess like we kind of decided at some point that we want the humanity as like a bunch. It's like it's a group of people, and if someone is sticking out from that kind of group of people, it needs to have a purpose. So one kid is cool because it creates a moment. 2 kids, then it becomes like then it can become weird and annoying because they clutter up the audio field with like bad reading and stuff like that. But it was like it was a really cool consideration, and that was also, we were heading out to record a choir, and on that train ride we also had a lot of ideas, but just like, okay, so how can we use the choir? Can we make them do weird voices? Can we record them? For instance, we recorded them going into the room ready to record with the binaural mic. So if you play the game, you can start up the game and you hear people going past you, and they get ready, and you start the game, and the choir comes in singing. And at the same time, when it's done, you can hear them leaving again. So it's kind of like this, setting up the stage. Humanity is entering, and action. It's kind of linear, a little bit of a linear thing, but it should be okay, right? You're not that elitists.
Just
Quite
saw
big.
a comment in the chat there, by the way. Timothy from Australia has just finished the game and he really loved it. So, hi, Timothy.
Hey,
Oh, Timothy,
nice.
good day, mate. Let's go.
way to go, man.
Yeah. Is in Australia? Is it go upside down for you? Because we modeled it after Norwegian forests, and maybe it's supposed to turn with the axis of the Earth.
Yeah, oh no, I don't want to talk about the ending. Never mind.
They walk
Somebody else
backwards
said that.
through forests.
Mhm.
not
Yeah.
forward. But yeah, talking about like the linearity of the game, I guess we're doing some tricks behind the scene to sort of make it not that linear, because we have these showpieces or like point of interests that we call them. Like maybe you see a green meadow or like a golden meadow with a kid's voice and stuff. Those sort of get populated as you walk around in the forest, and not always in front of you, so you might miss a couple of which is kind of fun. Sort of helps.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, helps sell the illusion that this is like a handcrafted thing.
Yeah, because I suppose that if you would take kind of like the player camera and pull it up and just see that all of the forest, there is a lot of just moving things around and making sure that you have the complete freedom to go in any direction you want, of course. And I think that's such a cool part of the experience. But at the same time, you'll always encounter something interesting.
Yeah, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
From a level design point of view, that was actually kind of fun, because the game's level design responds to the player's exploration of the forest. So if they walk in one direction, the game's gonna be spawning things around you in different places. So no two play sessions are alike for when you see things and where you see things, which was totally new for us, and it took some time to find the right moments to do that. But I think it's the future. I feel like games are just going to make themselves.
Yeah. More adaptive.
Especially with the data, like voices, computer voices. Like it feels like the whole digital thing could just create itself at one point.
Yeah.
Make a game.
It should do a game jam now with randomly generated sunlight. Kind of just give it a prompt, generate some text, get some voices, and off you go.
You can feed the manuscript into an algorithm and see what comes out. Maybe it's better.
I did that, Aaron. Did you see that post? I actually tried it, Adrian. It's in our Slack. We're looking at.
Right.
But did we have some behind the scenes like art stuff to show, or am I just joking around?
Yeah, Simon, do you want to go first, or I can show some stuff? Or
I mean, I could start off showing a little bit of the early stuff if you'd like.
Yes.
It's well, to be completely honest, I only took some key videos from our Slack channel and saved them to a folder so that I could show them off now for you guys. Hang on, let me see if I could just find the stuff there. So I mean, I am just so excited about this that this just works in general. So apologies if it feels a bit technical, but let me see if I can share my screen properly now. I will do like so. Okay, my stream is going. If you, Stream Master, wanna change up the layout. Oh, here we go. Almost. Yeah, there we are. Okay, so I think this is kind of interesting to show. This was the very first test we did with the art, I think. So this was about like 1 week in. if I can recall correctly. And at this point, the only thing we had was like the prompt of this is gonna look super unique. Okay, how are we gonna actually do it? And then I spent all Wednesday night just testing out random stuff, and what stuck the most was this test, I think, which is straight from that VR painting quill app. And that's when we kind of decided that, hey, this is kind of cool. We like this, and I was smart enough not to tell how heavy this was.
Do you have the GIF of the earlier?
So in Krillbite we deal with the deceit a lot.
What was that, Bjørnar?
Do you have the GIF that was recorded of the direction that we went before that, like with the more flat brush strokes placed in the scene? That's kind of
that is very
interesting
interesting.
to see as
Let
well.
me leave this up while I go find it super quick. Yeah,
Sorry
just
to
to give
derail
some context, we were yeah, as I mentioned, we were kind of just trying out different directions, and obviously, like when you talk about it looking like a painting, maybe the first go-to solution is, of course, to use like painted textures and billboards, as we call them, in a 3D scene. Because yeah, I mean, if the camera was still, we could have just made a painting and called it a day. But of course, moving through it provides some pretty unique challenges.
So both the approach of placing brushstrokes individually and the approach of kind of adding a filter on top of an image, kind of, they're kind of quick solutions to come to, but they turn into a lot of work very, very quickly. And well, one of the joys of being a tech artist is that I get to put a lot of work into being really lazy. And once we
Sounds
had
like a paradox.
no, it's perfect. Like spend effort in the places that are fun to automate all the work that you actually have to do that is less fun.
Yeah. Oh, I actually have the thing here. I'm assuming you guys are seeing this, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so this was just billboards, right? And I mean, just walking straight through it, it looks kind of okay. But the moment you get like actual proper resolution on this, it gets super flickery. And also, if you were to turn the camera, everything would just explode. But it was really cool that week in particular, I think, because yeah, as mentioned, there was no direction other than it is gonna look like nothing else. It's gonna be completely unique, and how are we gonna do that? But I also want to show off this super cool thing. I think I had the first LOD morphing test, which is what. Yeah, I think this is what you posted, right, Bjørnar? And this is basically what we're doing with the trees in the background. So as you can see here, as you move away from an object now, the details kind of merge just into one. It's a little bit subtle here because this was the very first kind of like prototype of this effect. But it's so clever how it's set up, right? Because what it's really doing is that every one of these small dots is like a brush stroke in VR, and then through some Houdini magic, every point here kind of finds well its neighbors and calculates how much reduction we want of detail over distance. And as the camera moves back, it kind of just interpolates itself and moves into that position to kind of like ease out of detail in a super neat way that I have never seen done before, which is really impressive. And it's kind of like a version of this that's in the final game that kind of in a very subtle way creates and really nails that painted feel, I think.
Yeah, we're kind of abusing how level of detail kind of transitions are done in video games. So something that is far away will be swapped out with a a cheap version of it, because you don't really need it to be very big to make it run at all. And the way those levels are blended between usually to hide transitions, we kind of use that to our advantage by allowing ourselves to use not just lower detail meshes, or not lower details like technically, but also lower detail visually in a bit of a different way that worked out kind of best case in terms of my expectations panning out. They could have failed.
I think this thing is a couple of weeks after the first test, and this is again very early, but it's showing off that LED morphing thing to a very large degree, right? So we iterated on this a lot, because here right, everything is kind of blobby in the distance, and the colors are a little bit more widespread, and the colors are a little bit off, and all that stuff. But what's cool to see here is kind of that this was one of the first steps on the path we set out on to create this super strange look. I think at this point also everything has some sort of transparency, which is what kind of killed the performance down the line.
Yeah. Turns out that even the cheap transparency is very expensive when you have it rendering on top of each other, like, I don't know, 100, 200 times for every pixel on the screen. So that's that was the main optimization job.
Yeah, because in the VR sculpt, a lot of these are just like blobs of tubes and stuff that they're overlapping each other to kind of give the impression of texture in the tree trunk and in the leaves and everything. So when you have a lot of the stuff overlapping, even though you can't see it, the computer knows it's there, and it's going to try to it's going to compute it, So it's things that we didn't anticipate, but end up being very expensive. But luckily, we found out with enough time to fix it, so that was nice.
I just put together this thing right before the stream, which illustrates what we're talking about right now, right? So for the 3D enthusiast out there, you might recognize the wireframe, like all the points that the strokes are made up of. Because what's kind of cool with all sorts of VR drawing is that it's basically that you're drawing with 3D tubes, right? So what might just be a squiggle or look like a squiggle is really just a tube that is just moving in on itself, like so. And so that every asset made that way starts out looking like this. And through the whole Houdini processing step, we turn it into this, which is basically a very optimized way of representing the same form and the same colors. So we get kind of like the best of both worlds, like the optimized version that we can put into the game, while still having the super intuitive interface to work from. And this is just the surface normals, if you're like into that, I suppose.
If you're normal.
I'm into surface normals.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't judge. I think that's what I have over at my side. I'm gonna close the stream window. But did you, Rob or Björn, have anything cool?
Yeah, I can share my screen and show some stuff. Let's see. I can share my entire screen. That's perfect. And then, are we switched up on the stream already?
I think that works.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can see the what should we call it? The inception of Windows here. Yeah. So we have. Let's see where to start. I think what would be cool to see. Yeah, we can start with the biomes. So basically, we have a collection of sculpted art assets like trees and different kinds of grasses and different kinds of bushes and rocks and stuff like that. And we put them on different layers, and then we can basically kind of make like a boundary that the vegetation system spawns them inside of. So this is a little rock group that I'm kind of testing out here, and I can scale the volume that it's scattering inside, and I can move it around. I can rotate it, and so this kind of lets you really quickly just populate a forest and set dress things, and instead of placing all these things one by hand, you just have a system that spawns them, and then you can add a bunch of rules for near the edge, maybe scale it down, maybe add certain noise to randomize the size of things. So this was a big part of some of the special areas of the game, where like if you enter like an open meadow, or if there's, you know, anytime we need to have direct control over things, this is kind of how we approached it. And then for the rest of the forest, we kind of learned what we got from this, and found a nice balance of scattering random things but grouping them together in a natural way. So that was.
Are you saying you didn't make every single grass?
I touched every single grass.
I think it's really cool to see, like when you're working with it, you can still see kind of the detail blending as well. Like just pushing stuff back and forth kind of has this weird, almost bubbling effect when it's moving so fast.
Yeah, it's a really fun workflow, and it's really flexible. And it would be fun to kind of take this and move and work with future projects on this kind of thing as well, because I think it's a very different approach than what I'm used to doing, which is usually like hand-placed stuff.
But it also looks very fun to actually do. I mean, I want to put the sound on that, like and stuff.
And let's see.
Someone in the chat is criticizing you for using Windows Media Player, by the way.
Oh, I can maybe. Do I have VLC? That's probably better.
Also, shout out to GW and Kitty. They're watching and enjoying the show.
Oh, excellent. Shout out to VLC Media Player. There we go.
Oh, this is cool.
Yeah, this is kind of like seeing how the trees. This is a bit of an early video, but you can kind of see how the trees would spawn in from the back to the front. So the near ones are a bit more defined, and the far ones are kind of like stretched out, and that kind of fills in the background of the forest. And this one here is kind of showing off the randomization of the forest. So we have a look here, changing the distance of where the trees are. And we are, let's see, oh, here we go. So kind of just like moving one slider, and you're kind of getting a completely different forest out of it. Which is kind of fun.
And we found the best one. We found the best forest.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. It took a long time of sliding that thing back and forth until we're like, that's exactly the one that we need.
Stop!
Yeah. Don't touch it. Don't breathe on it. Don't even think about it.
Oh, I do remember though that global distance slider. To find that exact sweet spot between performance and good looks, there was so much back and forth for a couple of weeks there, and then long discussions like versus the 37.5. That's the key. No, 40.
Yeah.
I think that was a lot of the process for everyone, at least with like tweaking the voices so that you would always hear a voice, but there would also be a voice in focus, but you could also hear all the voices at the same time. It was like, it was always 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because one fix broke something else, right? So that sounds like this similar thing in balance. You have to like, this is right. No. If we go a little bit back, that's way better. No, but that doesn't work in that case. Okay, so we need to go in between those two, and slowly figuring it out.
And especially with the trees in the forest, like every tree has a voice. So when you change the density of the forest and you're like, oh, this looks perfect art-wise, but then maybe there's too many voices, if there's not enough voices.
It's never too many voices.
That's
It's
true.
probably true, actually.
Yeah.
There was.
Oh yeah, then there's tweaking the grass here. This is kind of a little bit subtle to see here, but you can see the grass changing on the ground as we're tweaking this. So, procedural systems.
I guess now would be a good time to open for questions, if there's any questions
Yeah.
from the viewers.
There is one question from Person Kitty. What is everybody's favorite plant?
Uh,
Oh my god.
The rhododendron, definitely.
It's a cool plant.
Is that just because of the name?
No. Yes.
they are beautiful when they bloom.
I have a super spiky succulent that I think is just awesome. I don't know what it's called though, but I can get it.
I think we all have way more plants now than before the pandemic. So it's a very good question to ask right now.
I think you should bring the camera around your home, Bjørnar.
Well,
Yeah, the
You can see
stream
the
needs to see
forest
that.
behind you. You're
I'm-
literally in sunlight.
I'm partial to this one.
It's a good one.
Ooh,
Good little friend.
It's really cool news.
is that marijuana?
This is a family-friendly stream, Rob.
It's not a marijuana, it's a dragon scale alocasia, Rob. Oh my god. I mean, you can't actually see too many plants in here now because they're
Yeah,
kind
there's none of
they're bunched up in corners, but there's like a couple on the table behind here. But these are all struggling because it's winter and Norway is dark, and plants from the tropical forests are not really meant to live here. Yeah, this one's nice too. Yeah. I'm not going to do the tour right now, but
Do you name them? all?
there's some plants.
Do they have
no,
names?
no, they. We tend to stick to their established names for the most part. But there's oh man,
There's name tags around, right?
there are some, but
Yeah.
right now, well, there's Gloria Gaynor because she survived, and oh my goodness, I can't remember right now, but yeah, a few chosen one like Miss Tang has names, but yeah, most of them unfortunately don't. There is such a thing as too many plants, actually. we're playing with the boundaries there.
Neptar How asks how long the game has been in development, and it's been less than a year. We started February last year, and main production started in late August, early September, something like that. Adrian, for you, I guess you started working on it a bit earlier than that as well.
Am I
Yeah.
wrong in remembering that this was pitched at the same time as the plan?
Yes, you are wrong.
So was it the one right after? Because I feel
No.
like it was pitched like years ago for the first time. As
Interesting.
like a version of it where you walk and
Yeah.
all the trees have a voice, like that sort of thing.
I remember it was like, or the first I heard of it was a year ago when we had, like, we were closing up Mosaic. We had like this meeting, and everybody pitched some games.
Yeah, no, I think it's been worked on for like on and off, of course, for the last year. There were some work in like pockets where like a couple of people were prototyping. One person did some concepts here and there. I was writing on and off here and there in between other projects. So yeah, it's not been in full-time production for that long, but yeah, since like September-ish, we've been working on it with at least 4 people, 3-4 people all the time. So that's yeah. It's been a pretty quick turnaround in Krillbyte. Krillbyte time, at least. We have a tendency to spend our time on our projects. So
anything less than 4 years is an achievement.
Yeah.
but doing it's been pretty like really fun to just also force ourselves to get something out quickly as well. It's a very different process, I think.
Yeah.
There was also a question about consoles and other platforms, and we don't have anything to announce yet, but we're looking at other platforms than PC.
Might happen, you know?
Yeah, sunlight's going to be on smart fridges for sure.
Yeah. Smart
And
fridges
Alexa.
2022.
I heard a lot of good things about the Ouya, actually.
The Ouija board?
The Ouya board
Ouya.
in stores now.
And
There's a
also
question
Timothy.
on-
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Houdini. That's the one you were going to say.
No, this was
No?
a tip from Timothy. He recommends playing Sunlight while having a cool beer.
Hey?
So yeah, sorry,
But
David.
tea or a glass of wine is also excellent. Maybe a cup of
Water is the ultimate fluid.
Oh shit! Rainwater, nonetheless.
Drink the same as the trees. You know, go all the way.
I've never given a tree beer before, so
It's a lot of nourishment.
yeah.
There's
We're
a
getting
question on how the Houdini pipeline worked. Anyone want to run through that?
Well,
Yeah, I can go through it. So
Martin.
with Houdini,
Yes, please.
we decided to rasterize the quaver and impact the vector Z line. That would
Yeah.
fraternize the quadrants together into a triangulation of how the game would end up looking, basically.
Quadrangulations.
Yeah, sorry. Well, you know, that's good, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's not really much more to expand on there. I feel
There
like
never was.
Not at all.
Yeah. Well, to summarize it, it's basically taking the very nice-looking VR sculpts that come in, and well, it tries to do everything to preserve how they look, but while also making them game ready. And like the major part of it is, or the one that really gives the look to begin with, is that we transform the normals of each individual kind of brush stroke to basically all point in the same direction, so that each blob gets lit in the same way. And then the next step is to just generate the kind of the expanded versions of it that we use for the LODs in the distance. And we also pack, I think we use, like, you have 8 UV channels in a mesh, and we use 7 of them to the maximum to just stuff all sorts of weird data into it that has nothing to do with what UVs traditionally are for, but various values like random values or the original normals of the mesh or the original position. So the shader that we ended up with in Unity will read all of these values in, and I mean, that shader is kind of a bit of it's an illegal shader. It's a cursed shader. It is too big. It's not supposed to be that big, and it shouldn't be allowed to be that big. But somehow it still runs, and we've kind of shaved off the parts that really didn't. It's an example
I
of
was
just kind of going for look first and then optimizing later, which is how you should do it, I think. Anyway.
Hmm. I think there was also part of the Houdini process that helped set up the wind systems as well.
Yeah, I mean the benefit of using Houdini, like to require each process to take a detour through Houdini, is that you can also put all sorts of baggage onto it at any point and tweak this without really losing any flexibility or requiring an artist to touch it again. So there's also a pass in there that more or less splits the leaves from the wood and calculates how far away it is from the wood and how far it should wave based on that, and then kind of a mirror setup of that on the Unity shader side that will use that to, in a very standard vertex color wind sort of fashion.
Hmm.
But it was
a lot of that sounded just like what Martin said in my
Yeah.
ears. But,
Can't really, no difference.
yeah. I also forgot to mention the quadrangles, of course.
Yeah.
The quadrangulars.
Yeah.
But we should try to make a talk about this at some point, like either GDC or somewhere else like that. I think a lot of people will find this very interesting. So.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, because sorry.
I was just gonna go into the next one, but we can continue along this line.
we can. We've talked enough for Houdini for now.
Yeah, I see Raxter Baxter, familiar
Woohoo.
face in the chat.
Dang.
Yeah, he was one of the he did the original prototype along with Rob, Martin, and Adrian, and left us a beautiful base to sort of build this amazing game from. So
Figured out the game so we could just flesh it out.
Yeah, he wonders, do we have the next game, the next Sunlight game that we want to do? I see some great titles here. Sunlight 2, More Sunny. Sunlight 3, Sunburn.
Overcast.
We could maybe make a tie-in with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Right.
Perfect.
I'm sure they want in on this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or go like Supernova could be the next one. Set in space. Same game, just stars instead.
Yeah.
Might actually work. Yeah. Starlight, yeah.
Moonlight.
I mean, I would actually love to do another game in the same style, like art style and kind of philosophical intention style.
Well, I mean, if Adrian goes to the mountains for another year, he can just come back and we'll just record new voices and it's done.
Yeah. We'll do it.
Maybe the AI is up for the task, so we can just auto-generate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been cool to have a subscription thing where we just like, buy Sunlight and, there's a new story every month.
Holy shit.
Get to it, Edwin.
Yeah.
Really go to that cabin,
Yeah,
really.
It's about time we lock him in the basement.
Yeah, about making games with a quick turnaround. It's. I guess there's no plans for a sequel, but I guess we are working on a lot of different projects right now, quite a bit of different things, and they're all very Krillbite-y, if that's a verb. I don't know. Even though there's no plans for a sequel just yet, there's still lots of stuff in the works. Leaving that
That's all we have to say about that.
I do want to make a point about just the enjoyable thing of making games that are short in production. I think in Krillbite's time we worked on 3 games that have been very short production time. Like the plan, which is flying in the forest kind of game. Blip Blop, which was a little soulless quick clicker sucker game, and then and Sunlight. And I think like looking at that versus Mosaic and Among the Sleep, which were the big titles, I can look at them and just think like, oh, that was fun. I'm happy about it. And the other ones are like, oh, those years I will never get back. Like
Years of pain.
yeah, exactly. So I definitely think we're pretty good at making short games. At least like we're making them pretty healthy, I feel, and that's and I also feel that we managed to make them pretty good, like with a high degree of polish and consistency and quality.
Yeah. Personally, Kitty wonders what is krill biting for the uninitiated. Could someone explain what that means?
Tough one.
Well, I like the quote that was on the old website. It was instead of walking the existing path, like walk a new path and leave a trail, something like that. But that's like big words to fill. But the intention is very much there. So
Yeah, we like to make it difficult for ourselves, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do it the hard way. That's
Yeah.
Because the easy way is easy. Like game dev is so easy.
Yeah.
I think
Actually,
also there's.
I have something to share here. If you guys are, I have the old Sunlight prototype.
Ooh.
Go for it.
The one that Rexter did?
Yeah, the one that Rexter and I and that we worked on before.
And Inna, I guess Inna was at that too, right?
Yeah, this
Right.
is when Inna Hansen was doing the art direction.
I hear a little bird told me that she might be watching this stream.
I'm sharing my screen now. Okay. Let me know when you guys can see the things.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here we
Are we good
go.
on the stream?
Nice.
Cool. Yeah, this was the original forest. Everything was hand placed, so like I could just grab this bush here and just move it directly. And these are all kind of texture, like basically just like planes, just flat planes with brushstroke textures on them. And yeah, just a bunch of hand-painted patches of little flowery bits and different colored grasses and bushes. And everything was just hand-placed. And we kind of quickly realized that this was too easy, so we went the hard way.
Now that I see it does hold up pretty well. Like it has a very different style, but it feels very Norwegian, I would say. Very Norwegian foresty.
Yeah, it's
I think you
definitely
can
a bit
also,
more crisp.
yeah, and you can also see very clearly like the effect of the. I think the most notable difference between the one we ended on is like the difference in the distance, where you see these really crisp, far away details.
Yeah, exactly. And the lighting was a bit different and everything, and yeah. But it was yeah, this is kind of where things started. It was a very basic like cylinder trunks with some layers. You can kind of see the layers here. There's a layer there. There's a layer underneath to kind of add some brush strokes to the trunks. And it's all yeah, it's mostly using textures to express the paint strokes, whereas the direction we ended up with was like painted brushstrokes in VR, kind of like volumetric foliage in that way. So they do share a lot of similarities, though, and I feel like there are a lot of merits to both of them. But I think this one just hit a lot of practical issues, like trying to scale this up to a forest the size that we ended up with in the full game. It was just very difficult to approach with the hand-painted thing, and if we needed to tweak something, it had to be repainted and stuff. So having a procedural system let us kind of just iterate a lot faster with that. And But yeah, I mean, I think it was just a good starting point, like using a lot of traditional game art techniques. And then it's like, cool, how can we make this even a bit more, just a bit more unique and a bit more interesting?
And also, we had a lot of assumptions back then about how, for instance, it would feel to walk through a forest where every tree had a different voice and they would just fade over into each other. So, like, there was just, like, Martin, you brought the mic to the office and people on the team were just reading out, like, the manuscript. And it was just plopped onto all the trees to just actually feel what that, like, our assumptions, if they held up in practice, I guess.
We learned a lot of things about types of voices. I remember our previous CEO, Jon Cato Lorentzen, he was one of the voices that read, and you would just, has a very iconic voice, or very peculiar voice. So that was the reason why we started looking for, like, okay, we can't have people with two strange voices, because he will latch onto them and immediately that will be that tree, and you will hear it every time it repeats, and you find a new version of it. And yeah, so thanks to our previous CEO, we learned a valuable lesson.
Maybe we can. Do you have the choir video on YouTube available?
Ooh,
You could look at those beautiful people singing the song as well.
It's also worth saying that we did record it with a choir, and it is in the middle of a pandemic, and we did through that we did all precautions we necessary to ensure that was safe and proper.
No singers were harmed in this production.
Yes, please choir responsibly.
Well, I mean, we were going to dispose of them afterwards anyway, so
as one does with the choir. Nice.
Massive graves. Wow.
It was definitely a very, like, special day to, like, during production you have all these normal days of just doing the things on the list, and then you have these other days that really just stand out and you end up remembering for a long time. And that session was definitely one of those latter days where just a whole day in this Archbishop's Palace in Trondheim in Norway, listening to this choir sing this piece over and over and over again was pretty special.
Was there any collaboration on, like, did you just kind of you went in there with the plan for how the choir is going to make the music and they executed, or they performed something and you had feedback and they made adjustments? What was the process like for that?
Like, they're really, like, skilled and professional and good singers. So, like, they were rehearsing the song internally as the choir for a couple of months, I think, ahead of time. Wow. And like, based off of Tchaikovsky's sheet music, basically, like that. And then once they came in, it was all just perfect, right? So it was just about doing a lot of takes to make sure, like, it's a long song as well, so making sure we have a recording where there's no, like, weird noises, or I was walking around recording it, so I maybe made some noises and being able to fade between the different takes to have, like, one consistently good recording.
Yeah. And then we had Ambot Audio help out with the recording up there, which was super, because they came with helped us with a big mic setup, and also had their very own, I'm not sure what to call it, but a proofreader, like, listening through the song, like, note by note, and after each take they would go up and say to the conductor, like, oh yeah, the quaver on the fourth line of the fourth thing was a little bit off, Could we do a little bit more bravissimo? Like, and me and Adrian was just like, every recording was really good for us, so we were just yeah, cool. No, it's fine. Take it again. But we were happy from the first recording, I think, almost.
That's really, really good. And you can, the whole thing can be watched on YouTube, our YouTube channel as well. So yeah, put on a headset and hear it. I saw on my Spotify year in review overview that I'd heard that song for 500-600 times in 2020. So it's definitely been on repeat in my brain while writing the game as well. So I think it, the song itself, has had a very direct impact on the mood and the words you'll hear. It's fun, back and forth. There was Rexter had another question as well.
Yeah.
Do you feel you reached the vision you originally set out to reach? Question mark.
It's a hard question, but of course I think yes.
I think the original vision was not as fleshed out as the final product had to be. So on the way, we had to discover the idea was you go around in the forest and listen to the trees tell you a story, and that was even before the whole thing was finished, or we had made before we had made a prototype. So I think the vision and the general idea of the game needed to be prototyped for us to realize what it needed to have in addition, or the tweaks it needed to have. But I think in the spirit of things, the core of the game remained fairly unchanged, right? It feels it was consistent from beginning to end.
Yeah, I think we had a very clear direction when we started, and that can be both a blessing and a curse, I think, because it makes it very easy to make decisions while you're making the thing, because you can always compare it to the initial vision. But at the same time, there's always going to be those moments where something maybe doesn't work as intended, and you're forced to either pick something else or stick with it. And we had a lot of both, I think. So one thing we ended up changing was adding having the flower picks actually trigger the dialogue progression. So as you're walking through the forest, you'll be picking flowers, and picking them is what makes the voices continue talking in a way. So you have space to take a break if you don't want to have voices continuously speaking, and you have some impact over the progression. So that was something we added during production, whereas the overall vision, I guess, in terms of the content and the themes we explore is pretty unchanged.
Which took some effort, because there's been plenty of pushback to make it more of a video game, but you stayed true.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's 100% sunlight, and that's if that's good or bad, that's up to the public to decide. But it's it is 100% itself, and I think that's the most important thing.
That's great.
Is there a final question, or how are we on time?
I think we have time for one more question. If it's a really good question, it's got
well thought out question.
Yeah.
Are we ignoring people on YouTube?
Maybe.
I hope not.
Oh,
I think we
No,
might be.
Cool.
No, I've been looking at it.
That was the last question, right? We're done now.
So what is happening on YouTube?
There was a couple of questions about VR, and yes, we are no, we might do other platforms later on. So say, don't.
Maybe.
But it would be cool though.
It would be pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, it could easily fit inside a VR experience since
For sure.
you
It was
Wow.
partially made in VR, right? So you should be able to play it in VR.
Right.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't think any one of us know what we're doing. We're not used to streaming much, so this is a fun experience.
How much sunlight a day does Norway get right now? Personally, Kitty asks. I think like maybe 2-3 hours. If we're
It
being
depends a
generous.
lot on where in Norway you are, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And
if
it's-
you're where Punkyfish in the chat is, there's no
Yeah.
no sun.
But we also
You're
have
inside
had
it, yeah.
historically little sunlight, sunshine, since I think in December, up from the 1st December till the 20th, there were only 6 hours of sun because I think 19 of those were overcast.
Oh, god damn. Yeah. We're barely scraping by here. Send
Please.
vitamin D, please.
send sunlight. All your
Send sunlight.
photons.
Yeah. Send your rays. Reflect them to Norway.
Point your webcam at the sun.
Ooh.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hope for all of you who are listening, though, I really hope that you, if you haven't played the game already 3 times, which you could have totally done, I hope you can play it and enjoy it, because it was we made it for people to play. So yeah.
Yeah. That's true.
All right, we're ending.
I think so.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you,
Cool.
guys.
Thanks
Thank you for
everyone
joining
for
us.
hanging out.
Bye.
Watching.
Bye.
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 Bye.